Okay, so you have £500 and you have to spend it on a mechanical dive watch. Where does your money go? A Seiko 5 maybe? A Tissot Seastar perhaps? Or at a push, maybe a Certina Heritage DS. All great options, but if it were me, I'd go with this, the Aquascaphe Classic, a vintage-inspired diver from French micro brand Baltic. Coming in with a modest 39mm diameter, this watch packs in some serious features for its price. In this video, we'll go through its specs, discuss its build quality, and take a look at how it wears, all to see if it's a worthy addition to your collection. And more importantly, is it worthy of your £500? Let's take a look. So when it comes to size, again, the diameter is 39mm. So right off the bat, it's going to fit like a dream on the majority of wrists out there. The thickness is 12.8mm, which is respectable. It has a look-to-look dimension of 46.9mm, making it relatively compact across the wrist, and a look width of 20mm. So yeah, changing straps will be a breeze. The weight, including this rubber strap, is 83 grams, resulting in a lightweight, compact dive watch that's full of vintage charm. On my 6.5-inch wrist, honestly, this thing feels really good. If anything, I'd say it wears slightly smaller than a 39, maybe more like a 37 or a 38. That's mainly thanks to a slight overhang of the bezel in relation to the case. From an overall design perspective, the watch just feels familiar, borrowing its look from vintage dive watches of the 1960s and 1970s. Think early Omega Speedmasters and Black Pan 50 Fathoms, to name a few, which is absolutely no bad thing. To my eye, it looks freaking awesome. The Classic has a very nostalgic feel about it, with its narrow mid-case, non-guarded crown, and narrow minimal bezel. The case is made from 316L stainless steel and has an all-brushed finish with sharp exterior angles. There are no high-polished elements on the case, resulting in a clean tool watch aesthetic. Another cool feature is the inclusion of drilled lugs. This makes strap changes super easy and further adds to that overall vintage look. The bezel is also 316L steel, it's unidirectional, 120 click for accurate placement, and sapphire capped. This makes it almost impossible to scratch, and to top it off, the bezel is also loomed. Okay, so let's just break that down. It's loomed, 120 click, and sapphire capped, all in a watch that costs less than £500. That's seriously next level. I can't think of many watches anywhere near this price point, or even 10 times the price, that have all these features. Just to add some perspective, not a single watch in the Tudor Black Bay range has even one of these features, with the cheapest Black Bay diver starting at around £3,000. And it's not like you can say, yeah, okay, but I bet the build and feel of the Baltic isn't as good. Genuinely, next to a Black Bay 58 in bezel feel and construction, you'd be hard pushed to tell which is the £3 watch. Even the bezel sound on the Baltic is amazing. The rest of the bezel design is clean and obviously vintage inspired, featuring an inverted triangle at 12, numbers at each 15-minute mark, and dots every 5 minutes. It's coin edged with deep knurling, making it easy to grip with wet or sweaty hands. The action is firm to the point where accidental knocks probably won't advance it. You almost need to press and turn to make it engage. So when it comes to the crystal, we have a double dome sapphire that mimics the look of a vintage plexiglass, giving us some nice off-axis distortion, adding further to the vintage aesthetic. When you combine this with the sapphire cap bezel, the entire watch face becomes pretty much impervious to scratches. Again, amazing for the price. The watch has a screw-down crown, helping to achieve an excellent 200 meters of water resistance, and features a similar coin edge to the bezel. When it comes to the dial, the design follows the same vintage aesthetic. It's actually packed with some really nice little touches. The base is matte black with a slight grain texture, becoming more apparent depending on how the light hits. We have a printed Arabic numeral at 12 and printed two-tone circles at each 5-minute marker. The triangular markers every 15 minutes are actually inset, adding a bit of depth to the dial. This reminds me of the sandwich dial on a Panerai, which honestly is kind of cool. All of the markers, hands and bezel are loomed with C1 Superluminova, making for good visibility in dark conditions. That being said, the loom does fade quite quickly, especially on the bezel, so yeah, that could be better. Text on the dial is pretty minimal, with just Baltic in capitals at 12 and Aquascaphe 200 meters at 6. There's a printed track around the edge of the dial, so there'll be no issues with precise minute and seconds reading, with each 5-minute dash being longer than the rest for increased legibility. Both the hour and minute hands feature chamfered edges as they return to the center pinion, similar to that of modern Tudor and Rolex watches. Like those watches, this one also features a lollipop style counterweighted seconds hand. So the dial design is great and definitely ties in with the overall vintage theme. There's actually quite a lot going on design wise, but Baltic have actually nailed the layout in my opinion. The whole thing just works with great proportion and symmetry. The case back is solid and screwed down, made with the same stainless steel as the case. It features an engraved image of a scuba diver and these really cool wave inspired minimalist lines, which look great. It's well executed and adds some nice visual interest to the back of the watch. Alright, so the overall build quality of the case, bezel and dial really are exceptional for this price point. The watch feels solid in hand with no creaking or excess play in any of the components. From an overall design perspective, honestly there's very little not to like about this watch. All watches in the range are available with 2 strap options. options. This black tropic rubber strap or a beads of rice metal bracelet. For me, it's this rubber strap all the way. It's a two-piece strap embossed with a tropic style design. The buckle holes form part of that design and provide aeration for the wrist in hot weather. The strap starts at 20mm on the lug end, tapering down to 12mm on the longer piece, and 16mm on the shorter buckle section. On the reverse side, we have an embossed diamond pattern, also helping with comfort and heat release, along with embossed Baltic logos on each piece. The shorter piece includes a rubber minder loop, again embossed in the same tropic pattern. What's great is that Baltic have also included quick release pins on the strap for an even easier swap out. That's despite the fact they've already included drilled lugs in the case design. The point is that no matter what strap you feel like wearing, the change-out process will be super easy. The clasp is a simple buckle and tang in matching stainless steel, with the Baltic logo engraved on the top side. This particular strap is medium in size, which in theory allows for 11 points of buckle adjustment. On the wrist, the strap wears incredibly well. It's well made, suits the style of the watch, plus being rubber, it's basically indestructible. Now, one standout point on the strap, and bear with me because this one is a little bit weird, but it smells phenomenal. Like seriously, I don't know if Baltic treat the rubber with coconut oil to make it more supple, but it sure smells like they do. Is that a positive? I'm not sure, but I definitely don't hate it. Powering the Aquascaphe Classic is a Japanese Miyota 9039 automatic movement. This is a tried and tested off-the-shelf movement offering 42 hours of power reserve, 24 joules, hacking seconds, and hand winding. There's little, if any, finishing, even mechanical, but we do need to remember the price point in this regard. Not that you can see the movement behind the closed case back anyway. The movement beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour. It's just 3.9mm thick and offers an accuracy of -10 to +30 seconds per day. Now that doesn't set the world alight by any means. That being said, Baltic do fine-tune these movements when they're assembled in France. What's nice is that a timograph test result was included in the box, noting that this particular example has been tested to run no worse than +10 seconds per day, which is a lot better than the figure quoted by Miyota. Also, I've had this for about a week now and it's only about 6 seconds off. So when it comes to wearability, the watch is truly fantastic. And as I mentioned earlier, would happily suit a wide variety of wrist sizes. Here you can see the watch on my 6.5-inch wrist against a selection of other watches for a visual reference. On the left, we have a Casio F91W, which has a thickness of 8.4mm and a lug-to-lug of 37mm. On the right, we have a Tudor Black Bay 58, which comes in with a thickness of 11.9mm and a lug-to-lug of 47.5mm. Ultimately, if you're a fan of smaller vintage watches, I have no doubt you'll absolutely love the fit and feel of this one. The Aquascaphe Classic is available in 5 different colour configurations. This black and cream example, a blue and gilt version with a sunburst dial, black and silver, white with a black bezel, and an SBO1 variant, with a steel bezel, red text, and an overall more utilitarian look. All variants start at €580 on a rubber strap, with the SBO1 version being slightly cheaper at €520, presumably due to the lack of sapphire cap bezel. So that brings us on to 5 not so good things about the Aquascaphe Classic. On this particular example, when the crown is fully screwed down, the Baltic B doesn't line up straight. This doesn't bode well for my OCD. The engraved case back, although really well done, the engravings are so fine it's quite tricky to clean out. It just seems to collect dirt and debris a lot quicker than other watches. The rubber strap has been nicely embossed and moulded, however the strap minder loop has been somewhat forgotten. It's only been embossed on the one face, which looks a touch unfinished. At this price point, it's amazing to get a loomed bezel. Just don't expect it to stay visible for too long. Finally, the accuracy on paper could be better. The inclusion of a Swiss movement like in some of their other watches would be nice to have, but again, for the price and considering the overall build quality, the trade-off is acceptable, especially considering its real-life performance. Now, for all that's good. To get a scratch-proof sapphire bezel and crystal for less than £500 is just insane. It's seriously next level. The fact that the watch has drilled lugs and quick-release spring bars is phenomenal. Plus the fact the lug width is 20mm makes the watch an aftermarket strap monster. The dial texture and depth is delightful to look at. It's full of small details that simply add up to a nicer visual experience. This is without doubt the best smelling strap I've ever come across. You'll have to take my word for it, but seriously, it's so good. Finally, I just want to shout out the overall design one more time. I'm an absolute sucker when it comes to vintage inspired watches, and this one's truly up there with the very best. So what's the verdict on the Baltic Aquascaphe Classic? Should you consider adding one to your collection? Well, the Classic isn't going to win any awards when it comes to its movement. It's not Swiss, which is a big thing for some people, and it's definitely not going to be the most accurate. However, movement aside, the design, fit and finish of this watch truly are incredible for the money. It genuinely puts watches priced twice, 3 or even 5 times as much to shame. Its build quality and its design are without doubt its best features. So should you buy one? Ultimately, if you love vintage dive watches and want a well-made, versatile watch that can pretty much do it all and don't want to pay thousands for the privilege, then yes, absolutely. I'm certainly going to. Guys, thank you so much for watching. What are your thoughts on the Aquascaphe Classic? Would you buy one? Have you bought one? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, please be sure to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next review, and we'll catch you in the next video.